The consciousness development of the monads goes on in a series of ever higher natural kingdoms, 6 within the solar system and 6 in the cosmic worlds. The 6 kingdoms belonging to the solar system are the mineral kingdom, 49.7 to 49.5, the vegetable kingdom, 49.7 to 48.7, the animal kingdom, 49.7 to 47.7, the human kingdom, 49.7 to 47.4, the essential kingdom, 49.7 to 45.4, and the manifestal kingdom, the first or lowest divine kingdom, 49.7 to 43. The monad consciousness is activated in the envelopes. It learns to apprehend the vibrations in the ever higher molecular kinds of these envelopes, acquires the experience and knowledge of the matter and motion aspects possible in these envelopes, as well as the ability to use the insight gained. As a rule, the monad spends 7 eons in each of the lowest 4 natural kingdoms. It follows from what has been said that each kind of matter has its own kind of consciousness and its own kind of energy, that every form of nature is a living being with a collective consciousness, and is an envelope for a monad in a higher kingdom than the other monads in that envelope. The transition of the monads from the mineral to the vegetable kingdom, and thence to the animal and human kingdoms, is called transmigration. It cannot work backwards. Reversion from a higher natural kingdom to a lower one is absolutely precluded. The quote-unquote degeneration of organisms, besides of all other matter, does not affect the evolution of the monads, but is the process of dissolution of composed matter, as also is quote-unquote radioactivity. Metallurgists experience a phenomenon they call the fatiguing of metals. In the mineral kingdom, the monad consciousness begins to be activated. In the lowest physical molecular kind, 49.7, the monad learns to distinguish differences in temperature and pressure. In this kingdom, the vibrations become violent enough for a first apprehension of inner and outer, and thus begins that process of objectivization of consciousness, which reaches its perfection in the animal kingdom. The monads eventually learn to apprehend external realities. Immensely slowly through the lowest 3 kingdoms, the monads come to see themselves as something separate from everything else. For us, who find the contrast between consciousness and the material external world self-evident, it is, of course, hard to grasp what incredible toil this process has cost. What the philosophers are trying to do is to deprive mankind of the result of this process of objectivization. The contrasting process continues in the human kingdom, but now as a contrast between the self-conscious self and the external world, including other selves. This process is necessary to the individual's acquisition of self-reliance and self-determination, without which qualities the individual can never acquire the power of freedom. There is a risk, however, that self-assertion and thus isolation will become absolute. This can lead to the severance of the tie that unites him with existence. It is by becoming an ever larger self with all the other selves that the individual acquires cosmic omniscience. The individual has to learn to overcome the self-assertion at the expense of other life and to realize the necessity of serving life. Then he will also find that therein lies the only possibility of happiness, joy, and bliss. In order to pass from a lower to a higher natural kingdom, the monad has to learn to receive and adapt itself to the vibrations from ever higher molecular kinds. At first, these vibrations fulfill the necessary functions of vitalization in the monad's envelopes. Consciousness in the mineral kingdom is gradually manifested as a tendency to repetition, after innumerable experiences becoming organized habit or nature. Increase of consciousness results in instinctive striving to adaptation. As mineral monads are absorbed by plants and experience the process of vitalization in these, mineral consciousness learns to receive and adapt itself to etheric vibrations, a condition for entering the vegetable kingdom. In this kingdom, the monad acquires the ability to distinguish between attractive and repulsive vibrations. thereby having achieved the contact with the emotional world, 48.7. Vegetable monads develop the most quickly when plants are consumed by animals and men, and the vegetable monads thereby are exposed to the strong vibrations in the emotional envelopes of animals and men. By learning to perceive such vibrations, they become able to gradually attain higher levels in their kingdom. In the lower kingdoms, transmigration occurs almost imperceptibly. In between incarnations, the animal monads are enclosed in common envelopes of mental matter. The higher up the scale of evolution an animal is, the fewer the monads that go into its group. Thus, several quadrillions of flies go to form one group soul, millions of rats one, hundreds of thousands of sparrows one, thousands of wolves one, hundreds of sheep one. Only the monkey, elephant, dog, horse, and cat, which belong to group souls of very few monads, are able to causalize. When a higher animal devours a lower animal, the lower animal's monad joins the higher animal's group soul. This is not the case, however, when men eat animals. Man's causal envelope is not a group soul. Besides, transmigration to higher kingdoms is not effected in this way, but is the result of the individual's own consciousness activity. Animal monads thus do not pass through the human organism, but return to their own group soul. Instead, evolution is counteracted, since the fact is that animal meat coarsens the human organism, the task of which is to strive towards quote-unquote etherization. When natural research eventually learns about facts pertaining to these matters, it will discover the causes and effects of consciousness activation. This applies especially to those scientists who have innate etheric objective consciousness, a thing met with more and more frequently. The levels of development within each kingdom appear most markedly in the animal kingdom, with its many classes from the lowest to the highest animal species. Classes are the natural order of things in all kingdoms. The classes of nature indicate different classes of age due to the different times of the transmigration of the monads. As each higher kingdom is attained, and also each higher level within the same kingdom, the monad's ability to be influenced by more and more comprehensive series of vibrations of ever higher molecular kinds increases. There are 49 such series within each molecular kind. When the monad has been able for a long time to be affected by mental vibrations, 47.7, and has thereby attained the highest animal species, it becomes possible for it to transmigrate to the human kingdom.